Hello and welcome to this week's episode of We Used to Be Journos, the podcast where two media insiders break down broken news. I am Jan Fran and as always, well not as always actually, because yes, last week's was a live show, but today we're back in the studio and I'm sitting opposite Antoinette Lattouf, my co-host. Hello.
Hey Jan. A really nice thing happened to me today. I was in the
that's different.
Yeah,
Good.
a really nice thing. I was in the CBD and this woman came up to me and she was like, I'm listening to you guys in my ears. She was part of the Ederati out in the wild, Antoinette.
Oh, that's nice.
She came up and I gave her a big hug. I don't know if she wanted a hug, but I gave her one. So it's nice to meet our Ederati out in the wild.
Yeah, I've heard that from people before. They say, I was just listening to you. And then I pop up. I'm like some kind of creature out of a horror film.
She looked a little bit frightened. And then I lunged at her. So maybe the horror film analogy is right. Yeah.
On the show today, you're going to get the It's a No from me. And my no is the podcast company that is coming for our jobs. Literally our jobs. Mine and yours.
Yes.
Specifically our jobs.
Yes.
I'm going to explain that a little bit more and also why I'm a little bit skeptical in this moment, but kind of terrified for the future.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, my no is on the latest iteration of what can only be described as like politically orchestrated propaganda. And you coined that term, propaganda.
Oh, I wish I coined that term. No, I just stole it from someone.
Okay.
Such a good term, though.
Okay, well...
Portmanteau for cop and propaganda, in case you didn't pick that one up.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about how it played out in the media when it came to the costs of protests in Melbourne CBD, and not just how it played out, how long it has played out. The short answer, too long. The longer answer is that we're going to unpack where this story started, where it ended up, and why you should be cynical, critical, all of the things if you see it pop up again.
Our big chat in the second half of the show is titled, Why the Fuck Am I Agreeing with Candace Owens?
That is not a new segment. That is not a new regular segment.
It's not a recurring seg. But somehow it is a question that many people have asked me.
Yeah.
And I have tried to find an answer. So we're going to unpack the divisions in, I suppose, the MAGA movement and why, interestingly, it's being driven by podcasters, how much you, a sane person who is probably on the progressive left, maybe somewhere
even loitering in the centre. Yeah.
How much you should trust them and how much is this the doing of a mainstream media that is ceding trust? That is going to be our big conversation, of course, in the second half of the show.
And our yeses, mine is for a political commentator who doesn't seek permission from power in writing her analysis, because lately I've been finding that the political commentary seems to be a little bit too polite and power adjacent. What about yours, Jan?
Good question. Do I have a yes? I don't know. I'll decide depending on how this show's running whether I have a yes. I've got a few percolating in mind, but
we'll see how generous you're feeling.
I'll see how generous I'm feeling, exactly. Before we get to all of that, though, there's something that I want to touch on with you.
Yeah.
Because your court case, Lattouf v ABC in the Federal Court of Australia, is officially done.
Thank fuck for that.
Yeah. You had the penalties have been decided.
Yep.
Justice Rangier ordered the ABC essentially to be fined $150,000 to go to you and said a whole bunch of quite poignant words, I thought. But anyway, I'm keen to get your take on all of that now that we're never going to talk about your case again.
I mean, we keep saying that. Every second episode we say we're not going to talk about it.
I think we've done a good job so far, but I feel like in this moment, let's just reflect on the events.
Yeah, sure.
Week.
Obviously, I am relieved. A lot of people straight away in the comments and emailing me, it's like, that doesn't seem like enough money. You should have taken more. You should have had more. Nobody who goes into litigation, particularly workplace litigation, goes in it for money. Because it is an area of law where the penalties are quite small, and I knew that going into it. I think one of the things I do want to point out, though, that it also does seem like a lot of money, $150,000.
Yeah.
At the point in which I got sacked, I was probably at the peak of I was at the peak of my career and peak of my earning capacity, and in the preceding 20 months, I lost at least 80% of my earning capacity. So this penalty is going to go a small but significant way in
it sort of helps
to make up for
a good degree of the lost income that you've had in the past 2 years, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
anyway, I mean, you've said to me 1,000 times and then you said it publicly, is not about the money.
Yeah.
But glad it's over.
Yeah, the ABC put out another statement saying that it was very sorry, but still hasn't apologised to me. directly. So, I mean, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But a couple of things did play out in the press. Obviously, everybody covered it. It was a big news story. Even the Times of Israel covered it, which was very peculiar in their framing. But I had a few journalists reach out to me here in Australia, obviously going to, would you want to do an interview? One was at the ABC, and Jan, you helped me, thankfully, not respond. Bitch. Where the fuck have you been the last 2 years? Now you want an interview? And you were like, Antoinette, do not do that. Antoinette, do not do that. Because then there was somebody else at a tabloid media outlet who was like, hi, I'm so glad that this was a win for us. Can I please ask you 2 questions? And I'm like, bro, there ain't no us based on the outlet that you work for. And a quick Google of your name shows there ain't no us. Okay. So there was like duplicity. There were people coming out. And anyway, but thankfully I heeded your advice and you were like, breathe, Antoinette, breathe.
That's right. That's right.
I did not engage.
My main role in all of this has been to talk you off ledge. But anyway, look, I'm very pleased for you that it's over and behind you, and let's have a party.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's celebrate.
I'll shout you a drink.
Yeah, as long as it ends by 8:30 and I'm in bed at 9. And I only drink sparkling water these days. Really, it's going to be a riot. Hello, thank you for watching. Thank you for making it this far. I hope you have enjoyed what you have liked and what you have heard. If you have, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. It really, really helps our show and we would be very grateful. All right, back to the show. All right, my note from me. Let's start with me. It is a podcast about gardening and it is hosted by a British man named Nigel Thistledown. Let me give you the vibe.
Okay.
Nigel guides you through 6 delightful episodes exploring the art, history, and beautiful chaos of English gardening. From Victorian flower languages that could start scandals, to epic battles with mischievous robins. From formal garden feuds, to spectacular horticultural disasters that somehow create magic. Nigel's wit and botanical expertise transform every garden story into an adventure.
Okay, that sounds like a wholesome kind of podcast, would you say? Something
like upbeat and lovely. Nigel's
inoffensive. Nigel does sound like the exact kind of man that you would expect to make this podcast. So if I can ask you to read Nigel's Instagram bio, please, Antoinette.
Nigel is a tweed-wearing garden wizard creating whimsical landscapes, a Shakespeare-loving plant whisperer, Cotswolds-based.
There you go. Now you might be asking, why would I hate this?
I mean, Nigel sounds like he's at one with nature. He sounds a lot happier than you are.
He does. But Nigel's not real.
Okay.
Yeah, Nigel is not real. And that podcast is not real. So that podcast has been produced by a new company. It launched about a month-ish ago. It's called Inception Point AI.
Oh, okay.
And their tagline is where AI gets a personality. And they have a bunch of personalities, including Nigel and others.
Yes, there was one, Penny Power. She's a finance person. And then Ollie Bennett, who is a globe-trotting sports storyteller. I mean, I think that could have been a little bit more inventive with Penny Power, the finance person,
you reckon?
with the name.
See,
just a little bit.
Not like entirely convinced that this is just not one giant troll.
Is it though? Is it?
Well, I mean, it's run by legitimate people. The former head of Wondery, which is this big podcasting, platform in the United States, Janine Wright is running it, and they're seemingly
they're like real people.
They're real people that are allegedly running it, and whatever is going on, they seem to have cracked the math.
The math is almost unbelievable because it suggests that it costs $1 an episode and that they run programmatic ads. They're just like the generic ads that go through. And so if a handful of people listen, then the episode is profitable. And that's because they plan to produce 5,000 podcasts, 3,000 episodes a week.
Yeah.
At $1 an episode. And like we create an episode a week, it costs a lot more than $1.
It does cost more than $1.
And it takes quite a few, not a huge amount of humans, but it takes a few human hands to create a podcast. So that's wild.
Yeah.
That math is wild. It doesn't, again, I understand why you don't think it's real. because it seems unbelievable.
Okay, well, in that case, if folks listening could do me just one favor at some point, go to wherever it is that you get your podcast, type in Inception Point into the search bar and just see what comes up. You will get a slew of podcast offerings.
Oh, they're already out there.
Oh, they're already out there. They're called things like bread, lawn, garden.
Okay.
Then you'll get podcasts called Jimmy Kimmel, Charlie Kirk. You will just get
What do you mean?
all sorts of podcasts that are
okay.
hosted by AI personalities. And there's this like saying in television, I don't know if you've heard it, but it's like you want – the ideal is that you get something good, fast and cheap. But the truth is you can never get all three. So if you get something fast and cheap, it's probably not going to be good.
Yeah.
And if I give you an indication of like another one of their AI personality hosts, her name is Claire Delish. What do you think she does?
She's either a porn star or a something with food.
She's something with food.
Okay.
But I'd like to see him venture into porn at some point, I suppose. Claire Delish, she's got an Instagram page, and if you head on over to it, you'll be able to see her cooking.
Deglaze just means grab all that yummy flavor stuck to the pan. Easy, right, besties? All you do is pour in a splash of wine, stock, or even lemon.
Okay, so looking at that, she kind of looks real.
Yeah.
I mean, the okay, besties,
Yeah,
or whatever she
something's a bit
said.
off.
I mean, I'm like that. That doesn't sound right. But a quick look, if you're scanning and you just want a bit like a quick recipe or something, I can understand the appeal. Does this Claire Delish have a lot of followers?
No, she doesn't have any followers.
Oh,
and neither does
okay.
the Inception Point AI Instagram.
Okay.
But I guess...
So why are you so worried?
No, because I think AI is in its infancy
Yeah, right.
now in terms of how it's being used by media and media companies. So maybe these people get it wrong, but the next people get it right.
Yeah.
And they create a, very real human with a very real backstory that has all of the, normal affectations that a human has. And this company is like betting that is going to be the media of the future. They had this video on their YouTube page, and here's a snippet from it. One of the marketing people they feature in the video is a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, and here he is talking about how he sees it.
I'm predicting that the combination of what Disney does, right, intellectual property, and what influencers do, Alex Earl, Mr. Beast, is going to come into one. Fake people, AI people, are going to be some of the biggest influencers in the world, and companies and humans are going to own those people, and it's going to be huge.
I know this is going to sound probably arrogant, a little bit complacent, or a cocktail of both. But surely you and I can't be replaced, and our side eye and our wit and our right commentary cannot be replaced. Not that fast anyway.
Well, listen, we've got a few years yet.
That's what we do.
All right? Maybe 2-3 years max. Cross your fingers. The thing is, there's been like quite a few changes in podcasting in recent years. And I think the biggest one has been this shift to video. So you don't just produce a podcast, you produce a vodcast.
Yeah, and there's a lot of money there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's been some kind of like unintended consequences of that. And one of those unintended consequences is, outfits like new AI companies springing up that are able to hack that with, beautiful AI people doing all of the same things that a normal human being would do on social media,
Okay.
AI influencers. And, you don't know where they're getting the information from. I listened to one of their podcasts on Blake Lively. I don't know if they were telling the truth. It kind of just sounds a bit like possible gibberish.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like moving to video doesn't really work for the more produced narrative podcasts. Like it works for two people.
Yeah, not the investigative stuff, the historical stuff.
Exactly.
And yeah, because the video doesn't work, and that means that arm is not profitable. That podcasting arm is not profitable. So it does beg the question whether podcast outfits will invest less in that sort of storytelling, which is the rigorous, interesting, thorough one. Because like, you know what? We can create a chick who says, yeah, besties, and that's going to make us a lot more money.
Yeah, or we can just have two people sitting in someone's basement
Bitching and moaning about everything.
like, hello, we are the problem. Let us just acknowledge that. And then you get a massive reliance on YouTube because YouTube is, growing as one of the platforms where you consume podcasts, not just videos. And so everybody's got all of their eggs in a YouTube basket, which like, who knows what the algorithm is going to do next year.
And we are in that YouTube basket.
And we're
very much in that YouTube.
Please subscribe to us if you're watching us.
We love our YouTubers, no shade.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, like there's heaps of barriers to entry. You need good lighting. You need to be able to like work with the camera. You need to be able to, you know, have a space where you can set up like, and that, you know, it's good for us again. But it just means that there'll be so many interesting people that just fall by the wayside in an interview because, shit, we can't get the video up and running. It's not going to be good for the video. We've had that thought as well of interviewing people remotely where we're like, oh, no, the lighting's terrible. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know?
It takes time to look this good on video. We don't just slap it. We don't just slap it together quickly.
I do. But yeah, man, it takes effort.
Yeah.
Which is annoying.
Okay, so that is your no.
Mm-hmm.
So my no's a bit strange because it is a general no, it's an ongoing no, and it's please keep your eye on this because no, if you see it again. So allow me to be a little bit more specific. You've probably seen the stories over the past few days, the multitude of stories about just how expensive democracy can be if people go and protest in Melbourne CBD. Instead of coverage being about why people are protesting or what our people in power can do to perhaps heed the calls of the protesters, there's been this story about how much it costs for 20 months of protests in the CBD. And Jan, unless you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you've seen it.
I've seen it. I've seen it. I think 25 million was the figure. In Victoria.
In Victoria, in Melbourne CBD specifically. And this figure and story, as I mentioned, ran for days with slightly different window dressing. Here's one example. The Herald Sun, you know, leading the charge. Taxpayers foot $25 million Melbourne CBD protest bill and more rallies are to come. And then the ABC I saw, just I guess to compare the meant to be different ends of the spectrum of reporting. This is a social video from the ABC.
Israel-Gaza protests have cost people in Melbourne $25 million. Is that too much or just the cost of freedom? Demonstrations about the war in Gaza have become a weekly thing here in Melbourne, and it causes a lot of problems because it shuts down roads, causes traffic delays and impacts business, and it requires a lot of police to keep the peace. Documents show police have put on 24,000 shifts since October 2023 to deal with the rallies at a cost of more than $25 million to taxpayers. Really important to note, 60% of that $25 million was for salaries and would have been paid out regardless.
What?
By just at the end, more than half, 15 million of the 25 millions was just shifts, and they're going to have to do those shifts. But maybe they could have been catching cat burglars instead.
Oh my God.
But instead, democracy's expensive, guys. And
so they've got this $25 million figure. It's like, actually, but 60% of it is just money that we would have paid to the cops anyway.
He also went on to interview cafe owners, and he'll be like, oh, we don't get many people in and restaurants are impacted. I mean, but protests aren't meant to be convenient. That's the very nature.
Yeah, otherwise it's a picnic.
That's right. That's right. Otherwise it's like lunch at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And it didn't also examine what people are protesting on the cost to our democracy of our government supporting a nation committing war crimes. Like, it doesn't explore any of the like tiny little details.
The reporter did say that there were documents that showed this. Can you tell us about the documents?
Yeah, look, and to be fair, in the caption, it did say these figures were from Victoria's Parliamentary Budget Office. And I was like, interesting. Like, why was that released and when was that released? And so then I had a little bit of a deep dive, and it turns out that these figures were given to News Corp, exclusively, because Herald Sun could exclusively reveal these staggering costs.
60% of which were just regular cop salaries.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And here's the clincher. How did the Herald Sun exclusively reveal this? Well, it turns out that the Shadow Police Minister in Victoria, David Southwick, applied for these numbers, to do the maths, and then gave it to the Herald Sun. So I'm like, So the opposition, the Shadow Police Minister, wanted these figures, gave it to the Herald Sun, and everybody just like bolted with it. They didn't even bolt, they ran around in circles, and they just couldn't jump high enough about these figures. But I mean, there's just a few questions to be asked about why this was done, the timing.
Because he did request this independent advice the week of the nationwide March for Palestine, which happened in, around over 20 locations
Yeah.
around the country.
It was huge. So this was after the historic Harbour Bridge March.
Yeah.
People were taking to the streets. The public sentiment was really in support of, I don't know, stopping the genocide or stopping starving children.
This is just like a politically manufactured story at its finest. And if
Yes.
anything, it just goes to show like sometimes the tandem in which the media works with government. Like if I was an opposition in Victoria, I'd be like, cool, I need to hit the Labor Party with something. Cost to taxpayers, mate, that's always going to
Yes.
fly.
Yeah,
So, hey, I ask for some figures. I go in and I ask for some independent advice. The independent advice gets released. Perfect, because now the press has a hook.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I hadn't have done that, then they wouldn't have had something new to go off. So they have a hook, they have a novelty. They start reporting on it. And of course, they're going to seek comment from me, the shadow police minister.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be ready, waiting in the wings to
Yeah.
say things like, I think this city, we should take our city back, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just a great way to use the media
Yeah.
to just slam your political opponent and
Not a-
talk and put something on the, in this case, state agenda.
And I don't think it's just slam your opponent. I think it's trying to influence the public sentiment around these protests and how they're growing.
But I love how the Herald Sun says, we were exclusively given these figures. It's like, that's not a brag, babe.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, they wanted you to have those
Yeah,
figures
and-
because they knew what you were going to do with them.
So they showed their hand, and it was up to public broadcasting, all the other outlets to do just a little bit more than press release and outrage journalism, which, you know, they failed to do.
Yeah. I mean, here is David Southwick on 7 News doing exactly what he planned to be doing.
Those protesters have had their say. Now it's time for Victorians to have back their city.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
It's time for Victorians to have
Have
back
back
their
their
city.
city.
And that is the whole point that he wanted to make. And he knew he wanted to make that point before he even asked for that independent advice.
Yeah. And so I guess now, like moving forward, my little message, dear Ederati, I want you to take note just how often that $25 million figure keeps getting hashed out, added to an article, spun by a politician or a coalition member. Remember its origins, remember its purpose, remember its timing, because this document was released, or this document was requested, as you mentioned, Jan, when we'd never seen as many cities and regions across the country marching for Palestine. And it's just frustrating to see other outlets, including the ABC and some of those we've talked about, more centrist outlets,
Just run with it.
Just run with it. Just
Yeah.
run with it with the headline. Just run and
Yeah.
run. And they're still running with it, and we'll continue to see it pop up.
Yeah. And just to add to that, remember that 60% of that figure,
15 million of it.
I once again reiterate that 60% was simply police salaries that would have been paid either way.
Oh, it's
so
wild.
is that a no from you, is it?
It is a no.
It is a no from you. All right. We're going to talk now about why you, yes, you, the dear listener of this podcast, suddenly find yourself agreeing with Candace Owens.
And horrified as well. Usually horrified. I get messages from my sister who religiously listens to our podcast, and she's like, oh my God, sis, I just, why am I listening to Tucker Carlson? Why am I listening to Candace Owens? And why am I nodding sometimes? I think a lot of people are having a bit of a crisis.
Yeah,
And
well,
we are.
I mean, yeah, because I get sent so many videos from like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and all of these like really kind of right-wing MAGA podcasters, and I'm just starting to think like, what is actually going on here? So, you know, we're going to unpack, I guess, the split within the MAGA movement, particularly in terms of US support for Israel.
I think that's the main,
That
that
is-
is the main deviator.
That is the main point of
Yeah.
contention. And you look at the way it's sort of been driven by podcasters and online commentators, and kind of explore a little bit about what that can tell us about the mainstream media.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, on the one hand, I'm like, well, you know, maybe some people evolve and they change in their views, and maybe they are driven by facts, and now they're more, you know, now they're more inclusive. Or is it more sinister, and we should just not trust them because they have a very well documented track record of being pretty batshit?
Yeah, it's somewhere on that spectrum.
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay.
But let's just start with like firstly understanding like why they're so appealing here.
Yeah.
And I just want to focus a little bit on Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. They've been going pretty hard on Israel, particularly Candace Owens, after leaving their respective workplaces. She left
Yes.
the Daily Wire and
Yeah.
he left Fox News. Now,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
No.
That they can leave these places and suddenly say whatever it is that they want to say. So there's an appeal to the audience there of independence.
Yes.
Right? And actually, when Candace Owens left the Daily Wire in March in 2024, one of the first things she said was, the rumors are true. I am finally free.
Yeah.
So there's this sense that you're going to get something now that you previously weren't going to get because, the implication, being silenced or not allowed to say it or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I think the other thing about probably Candace more than someone like Tucker Carlson or even Piers Morgan, she's a really gifted communicator. The conviction, the way she can just speak to camera without or whatever, without hesitation, she is a very, very skilled communicator. And not many people have that skill. They might have the knowledge, they might have years of experience, but she is a compelling and telegenic communicator.
Look, a lot of people who do well in the podcasting realm are, and I wouldn't underestimate just how potent that is. Like, I'm going to tell a story where I was going to I did a creative writing course for 6 weeks, like many years ago, and I learnt nothing from that creative writing course except for one thing, which pertains to speech.
Yeah.
The creative writing teacher was like, it's all about how you say the thing. And then he clapped it and he went, it's all about how you say the thing. And I was like, that's so interesting. Like, there's a rhythm actually to the way that people speak, and there's a cadence. So yeah, I can understand why they are appealing, and I can understand why they're convincing. Just have a listen to Candace Owens talking.
So I have been very disappointed with Trump on his perspectives about Gaza. I have been disappointed, by the way. He's the last person I'm disappointed with, because I've been disappointed, as we saw all last year, with the conservatives, people that say they're Christians, who are condoning this on the basis of what? Like, you're saying, oh, well, they're Muslims, so who cares? And that gets into our programming, which I've spoken about in my podcast, of this 9/11 programming, where we just don't see Muslims as like human life. And to speak about Gaza and talking about casinos and hotels, and these people just lost their entire families. Yeah. It's so far removed from humanity.
There you go. I saw you nodding along there.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, Candace, keep going. She was landing points that I obviously agree with, but she says it without hesitation, with such fluidity, with such conviction.
Yes.
Very easy to listen to.
Yes, indeed. But then you have to remember that she also says this.
They want us not to be brave. That's why they're giving us all this distraction, technology, social media, breeding weak men. They want everybody to be homosexual, right? That's another element of this. They want men to behave like women, while telling women that they're going to find happiness behaving like men. Women, you go to work. Men, you be more effeminate. All of that is a part of what I believe to be a broader strategy to effectively weaken our societies. Even if they go full mask down and say, yeah, sexual perverts are running the world, we are not going to have it within us the courage to fight these people.
You see what I'm saying? Like, okay, the conviction's still there. The cadence is still there. The delivery is still there. The forthrightness is still there. But what she's saying is
insane.
Well, that's certainly one way of putting it. Candace Owens thinks Harvey Weinstein's been falsely convicted, that Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of France, is a man, that BLM protests the protesters were pretending to be oppressed for attention, that global warming is not real. And she theorizes that something biochemically happens to women who don't have kids, and that the world is run by a cabal of sex perverts. I mean, that's a lot. All of that is a lot.
It is a lot.
You
and
know
that is why it is so confusing when you listen and you nod along when she's talking about Israel or Gaza, and you're like, Candace.
And then you're like,
what, Candace? What? I've been listening to Tucker Carlson, more of Tucker Carlson than Candace Owens. And there was this particular interview that stood out to me that he did with political analyst and author John Mearsheimer, whose work I have followed for some years. And this was back in July, this particular podcast, but it stuck with me because it came out after the Christian church or a Catholic church was bombed in Gaza. I think it was the last Catholic church was bombed in Gaza. And then, it made a lot of headlines. And it made a lot of Christian podcasters like Tucker Carlson upset. But have a listen to this. And the other reason that really irks me, and I've gone back and listened to it a few times, because he sounds so different to the ranty Fox News Tucker Carlson that while I'm listening or what I'm watching on YouTube, I'm kind of like blink twice. Like, are you there? Are you okay? Are you being held hostage? Because this is not the Tucker Carlson of the ranty Fox News years. But let's take a listen.
if you're a supporter of Israel, to want to make sure that the United States has a large military and that it is willing to use that military, and that if need be, it can help Israel if it gets into trouble.
I didn't hear any reference to American interests in that description.
Well, when it comes to Israel, right, and what Israel needs, right, that has little to do with American interests.
See, this is, I think, the heart of it. And this is why somebody like Carlson is critical of Israel, is because he has a very kind of protectionist attitude. He has an America first mentality. And that's what a lot of MAGA supporters have, that we should be putting the American people first.
Yeah.
We are going through a cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
We can't afford X, Y, and Z. And now we're being, our tax dollars are going to billions of dollars in weapons to Israel. That just doesn't square up.
I guess it's in line with his anti-immigration, pro-tariffs kind of protect America and its interests at all costs.
Yeah, and also America is the best country in the world and it should be a sovereign nation and we shouldn't have, AIPAC or whatever interfering in our politics. I think that's the other aspect of it. And so if you're someone on the progressive side of politics or the left, which they're such nebulous terms these days. I don't even know what I mean when I say them.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of criticism, critiques Israel as, a settler colony that is currently committing genocide. Whereas Tucker Carlson or some of his ilk would arrive at criticism of Israel via very different means.
Another thing that stuck out to me listening to way too much Tucker Carlson is how much his beliefs are rooted in Christianity in terms of his criticisms or concerns about Israel's genocide in Gaza. And this gives you a bit of an insight into that. Again, he's chatting to John Mearsheimer.
I would think that the United States would have a vested interest in trying to put pressure on the Israelis to stop causing murder and mayhem in Lebanon and in Syria. But we do hardly anything at all.
And those are real countries. Those are ancient countries and beautiful,
they are real
beautiful countries with sophisticated, intelligent people, and the roots of Christianity are there. And it's not, in other words, there's a sense if you're fighting over Sinai or something, it's one thing, but Lebanon? That's one of the great countries in the world. Syria, same thing. And they're being destroyed. I don't understand why people allow that to happen.
Why do we let them kill Christians? Because this was said not long after, and he was also quite vocal, in July after Israel bombed, I think, one of the last Catholic churches in Gaza, injuring a priest, killing many others.
Yeah.
And so he was very upset by that. But you can also hear he's with Lebanon and Syria, because they have historically significant locations and geography and things that happen in the Bible. So he's we must protect those. But Sinai and the Egyptians, I don't know, there's a lot of Muslims there. It's really hard. We don't have to care too much about it.
I think he has also previously called Iraqis semi-literate primitive monkeys.
Yeah.
I don't know how he reflects on that comment, whether that's changed, but it is a little bit of a confused perspective on Arabs. And anyone that's I like Arabs, in brackets Christians, is okay, little ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling bell as an Arab Christian. But I have that alarm bell ringing.
Yeah, so there is still a lot of low-key bigotry and a lot of stuff that you can't forget. You rattled off a list of things that Candace Owens has said and done. Tucker Carlson played an enormous role at Fox News in helping the American public believe that the election was stolen from Trump. He also, just a few months before, having John Mearsheimer on, had a historian that he called, he said, maybe the best and most honest popular historian in the United States. And in a very long conversation with that historian suggested that the Holocaust, to quote, kind of just happened by accident, as though the Holocaust wasn't engineered. And that claiming that the Nazis went in with no plan to kill millions of people. So I'm this guy sounds very much like he could be a card-carrying anti-Semite, Islamophobe, and very problematic other views. And so then when you turn to people like that, because they're the only people seemingly criticizing the US military industrial complex, you're I am very confused and have a very uneasy feeling, but I don't know where else to go.
Well, there's lots of people that are criticizing the American-Israeli military complex. They're not necessarily on the right, but you find a lot of kind of leftist critiques.
Where? as prominent. I'm saying someone so as prominent with that sort of platform.
Well, I mean, someone like Mehdi Hassan, for example, they would probably, him and Tucker Carlson would probably agree over this
and
issue.
I think him and Piers Morgan agreed on some issues.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's like other, independent American media on the left that is very critical of Israel. Like, you don't necessarily have to seek out these people, but they're just like quite enigmatic in the way that they talk. In the same way Mehdi is. Like, he's a very enigmatic speaker. But I think one thing that I would just point out to people who are sort of asking, like, can we trust them? It's like there is obviously the wider context going on here. And I just want to give an example of someone who's not a podcaster, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is this very kind of like right-wing Trump aficionado, very like America first.
Very MAGA. Yeah.
Very MAGA.
Yeah.
She was one of the first she was maybe the only Republican in American politics to call what is happening in Gaza a genocide, right? And not only that, but she put forward a bill in July to strip Israel of $500 million in funding. However, if you go back to things that she was saying, like in early 2023, she was, in my view, pushing the Republican Party in a really dangerous direction and talking about, we need to be the party of nationalism. This was the quote that she used. And I'm Christian, and I say it proudly, we should be Christian nationalists.
Yeah.
So she's pushing the idea of like Christian nationalism prior to doing all of this. And I guess the question is like, how much power do you want to, give? How much credence do you want to give? How much trust do you want to put in a person that has been on the record pushing something like Christian nationalism for America? Where does that end up?
Yeah, I understand. I see your point, and that's definitely a red flag. But at least her and Tucker Carlson are consistent in that they are America first, very nationalist, protectionist. Their actions and their rhetoric is consistent with the so-called MAGA values. It just seems that so much of other Republicans have abandoned that. And so I think that's where they get a little bit more interesting, and you go, maybe there is a bit more, maybe they have conviction. They've at least they're consistent. I don't know. But also,
yeah, I guess you can say that.
But
one thing that's important though, before like we move on, is that it's important not to overstate the influence. We've only talked really about two people. Like, there's a whole host of, MAGA podcasters that don't necessarily toe this line. There are others that do. But, like, in terms of how much influence they have on decision-making in the United States, like I talked about that bill that Marjorie Taylor Greene put forward, right? It was voted down, unsurprisingly. But do you want to know how much it was voted down by?
I'm guessing a lot.
422 to 6.
Oh, my God.
Votes down. You see what I'm saying? So you still have an upper and lower house of US Congress that is very much in support of Israel. And I guess the question is, how much impact does this rift within MAGA actually have on the Republican Party?
Sure. I mean, that's if you look at it politically, and it seems very little. But if we're to take it back to the media and who to trust and what audiences who are a bit perplexed should do. I mean, I think what people like Piers Morgan, who seemed to have a moral epiphany about, 8 to 10 months ago, and started to shift in his thinking and his language on Gaza.
I'm not so sure about that, but okay.
Something shifted. Whether you trust
something.
Candace Owens has been more sort of resolute and direct since leaving her past job. Tucker Carlson, he's been pretty overt, is that they are filling a void. And you said before, there are people on the left saying this, and I'd argue maybe the usual suspects on the left are, but the so-called like independent or the so-called centrists or the public broadcasters aren't doing the job that they should be doing. And my fear is that it's going to get more people like those in our DMs, like my sister, like other people who are going, well,
I just don't trust the mainstream media.
What
but
the Guardian's serving me up is bullshit.
Mm.
What I'm reading here doesn't feel right. Why is Candace Owens making a lot of sense? And so the danger there is that usual, kind of centrist people, centrist or left, are potentially veering right. And then when Candace Owens, in that same kind of charismatic clarity with that cadence says things like, and it doesn't make sense to kill babies, and in the same breath says, and they're all perverts, and where have they put the bodies, and men are going to act like women and wear dresses. You just be like, oh damn, I'd worried about that influence and that seeping through.
Right.
And so the responsibility really is for the rest of the media to do its job, so that people don't have to go out and seek Candace Owens or be like me, really confused about who Tucker Carlson is and if he's being held hostage.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think? Do you think they will do a better job on Palestine, on Gaza, on Israel, on the impacts of Israel on US politics or whatever respective country you're in? No.
Okay, well then,
no.
What do we then advise for people who and there are so many over the past couple of months who've emailed and said, what do you think about this? And how come this is making sense?
I think we just, look, the thing that's been the most helpful for me is just to be clear about the context of the people that they're following and the people that they're putting a lot of credence in, right? They have long tail careers. They have a long record. They didn't just pop out of nowhere. So I think, examine that and just take everything with a pinch of salt, understand the position that they're coming from. It might not be the same as yours. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing that they've arrived at this conclusion. It just means that they've come from a completely different perspective. So I guess allocate your trust rations accordingly.
And it's
okay.
Is
that helpful?
I think so. I think it's okay to agree on someone about something and still be a little bit critical or suspicious of the why. It could be that they really do disagree on this, but with Candace Owens, who has horrible and offensive views on Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, and has said and done so many things that many in the African American community have said is incredibly harmful to their community. And we go, but she's making sense about not using starvation as a weapon of war.
I know I feel like I say this on every podcast, but just listen to Palestinians. Just listen to Palestinians first. If you're having qualms about who to listen to and who to believe and who to trust, just start there. Start there. And believe me, there is a network of podcasters, independent media outlets, journalists, substackers, you name it, that is growing and that is more and more interconnected by the day. So you really just need to land on one of them and they will sort of show you towards the rest. I would say explore that corner of the internet.
Sure, if it's pertaining only to Israel and Gaza. But now, because people are listening to Tucker and to Candace and Piers Morgan about Charlie Kirk or about Trump or about China.
Yeah, great. Now we think Brigitte Macron is a man.
Exactly.
Yeah. to be.
So
I'm not going to. No, I'm not going to.
You were listening to too much Candace.
I have. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Yeah.
There you go. I hope that was helpful.
It is. I go back to, maybe I keep, you go, we always arrive at the same point. Your point is center and listen to Palestinians. My point is, where are our motherfucking colleagues? Do your job properly. The rest of our industry, do your job. Otherwise, I have to listen to Tucker Carlson, and that's really unfair.
Oh my God. Next episode of the podcast, I get red-pilled. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Hello, it's me. Quick break, just to tell you that if you like what you've seen so far, amazing, we want to do more of it. We need your help. Take a moment just to hit subscribe, share it with one mate. That's all we ask for. All right, back to the show.
All right, off to our yeses, the yes from you.
Okay.
What is your yes today?
Mine is Amy Remeikis, and it's not a particular piece, but there are a couple of pieces that caught my attention. So for those who don't know Amy Remeikis, she used to be with The Guardian as a political journalist. I have followed her for many, many years. When X wasn't such a cesspool. She's always had a large social media following, and I've enjoyed her, political takes. She went to the Australia Institute, a think tank, so I guess she kind of used to be a journo as well. She's navigating still being a political commentator, but not working for an outfit. And while she's at the Australia Institute, she's writing on her Substack, also for Deep Cut, who we've mentioned before, and the New Daily. And why I find her appealing is because as an opinion writer and a commentator, she doesn't sound terrified when she's sharing what her views are, and doesn't sound like her views have been approved by Anthony Albanese or whatever power. Like, it just doesn't feel that it has to be power adjacent. And a couple of examples. She did a good piece for Deep Cut in the past few days. And the headline, From Charlie Kirk to Gaza, Disagreement is Treason. The escalating crackdown on dissenting thought and opinion is taking Australia down a dark road. You know, and she explores it. And her voice is so clear and her voice is unashamed. And in the New Daily, I enjoyed her cutting commentary on Susan Ley and her grip on the coalition, which essentially is all but gone. And I want to read a little bit. In an attempt to hold on to her leadership for a few months, Susan Ley has clarified that the coalition does not, to quote, believe in setting climate targets at all from opposition or government. Good-o. And then she just continues to just kind of tear it apart. And I just love that her voice is clear and she hasn't cowered. And she doesn't care.
Is that because she also used to be a journo?
Yes, that's what yes, perhaps she also used to be a journo, but political commentary used to be like that when people were journos, like at reputable mastheads. I think there was a clear delineation between power and those interrogating power. Like the good old days.
I mean, maybe you do have a bit of rose-tinted glasses on about yeah. I think there are probably some columnists that, give it to the powerful. I can't name a single one right now. But
she's giving it to the powerful about the coalition, about climate change, about Gaza. She's giving it irrespective of what her subject matter is. Because right now, yes, you go, when David Spears asks some tough questions on someone like him on some issues, but then seems to have lost that tenacity and the ability for a follow-up on other, some would argue more pressing issues.
Okay.
Like me. Someone like me would argue on more pressing issues.
I can't imagine what pressing issues you would be talking about. All right, and my yes from me is nothing.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's fine.
Should I pay for my sins by having 2 yeses next week? Do you
know
reckon?
you're not going to,
No,
though.
I'm not going to.
You can
No.
pretend you're going to do that, but that's okay because there are some weeks where it's like,
Yeah, it's
not feeling
nothing's come to-
inspired.
You know what? I'm going to end on this note and say that every time that we've recorded a podcast episode, things have just come naturally. Like they're just things that I want to talk about. They've flowed. Nothing has really felt like work. It's just all kind of felt like a thing that I am interested in chatting in. And today, when I had that moment of I can't find the thing, it felt like how I felt working at networks and in newsrooms when you have to come up with something.
You have to fill a slot. You've got your minute 30. You've got your column. Yeah.
Exactly.
As media moguls, we make the rules up as we go.
Yeah, we sure do.
Yeah.
And the rule is just don't do a thing that you don't want to do. So that's that's me for this week. So what a joy to be able to say that and to be able to work on this show and just talk about things that I want to talk about.
Well, that is it for this week. We do love your tips. Please keep them coming, your story tips. Maybe you can help Jan out for next week. We do get a lot of, hey guys, this is a big no from me. If you see a yes, maybe, I don't know, Jan, would you be open
Actually, I would definitely be open to that.
Yeah. We need some help, guys. We need some help with the yeses. So if you see a yes, we read your emails, we read your DMs, we try and get back to as many of you as we can. Thank you for your labor. Thank you, our unpaid research interns. Very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm. And thank you to everybody that has liked and subscribed and followed and reviewed and certainly supported us with your dollars. It means the world to us and it allows us to keep doing what we do. And we're very, very thankful.
And if you haven't given us your dollars yet, etmedia.com is where you do it. Jan, you're always so coy you're always saying if you would like to, thank you very much, give us your likes. And I'm like, give us your money.
You know where to go to do that. See you next week.